Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. As Christina mentioned, I am the groundskeeper here at the library, and I have been here for the last 10 years. And during that time, I have had the amazing opportunity of not only caring for these trees, but also shaping their lives. And at the same time, those trees have shaped my life, and they have led me here today. So, for as long as humans have walked the earth, trees have shaped all of our lives. Our relationship with forest and trees has never been static. It has always shifted dramatically over time and across cultures. Indigenous communities, including many Native Americans, developed relationships rooted in reciprocity and reverence. Trees were more than resources, they were relatives and teachers and symbols of balance. In the early stages of civilization, the clearing of woodlands was often seen as a triumph, an unmistakable sign of growth. Expanding farmland indicated agricultural progress and an increase in population. So forests that were once revered or loved were cut back to make way for settlements, and trees in those moments became obstacles to human growth. Today, modern science is catching up with ancient wisdom. We now understand what early humans instinctively knew. Trees don't just support ecosystems, they support us as human beings. There are an estimated 3 trillion trees on Earth today. That is roughly 422 trees for every person alive. These numbers are both reminders of nature's abundance and a call to stewardship. Trees are not just a background story, they are central to life itself. Today, we're going to go on a journey through time, culture, and science, an exploration of our reverence for trees, from symbols and sentinels to true natural giants. Our connection to trees. How are we as human beings connected to trees? Why do we love, or why should we love and revere trees? So the first one is health benefits. Trees make us feel good. Aristotle believed that taking walks outdoors helped clear the mind. Great thinkers like Darwin, Tesla, and Einstein, they often strolled through gardens or through wooded areas to help stimulate their thoughts. Theodore Roosevelt regularly retreated into nature for extended periods of time to recharge and reflect. The idea is that humans possess an innate drive to connect with nature and the natural world is known as biophilia, and that comes from the Greek meaning love of life and the living world. In 1984, E.O. Wilson actually made this very popular. He believed that it is in our DNA that since we evolved from nature, that we are hardwired to connect with it. Humans have only been inhabiting large cities and urban dwellings for the last 6 generations. It is actually estimated that for the previous 350,000 generations, humans lived directly in nature. 2007 is the year that more people lived in urban areas than in rural areas for the first time in history. Researchers are measuring how nature impacts not just our mood, but also our overall well-being and our cognitive abilities, such as memory, planning, creativity, concentration, and even daydreaming. A study in Nature found that living in urban areas was associated with a 40% higher risk of developing a mood disorder than their rural counterparts. Japan is spending $4 million every year on something called Shinrin Yoku. Shinrin meaning forest and Yoku meaning bathe, so literal forest bathing. And since 2004, researchers have been taking subjects out into the woods, and they have found that in compared to urban walks, a forest walk shows a 12% decrease in cortisol, a 7% decrease in sympathetic nerve activity, a 1.4 decrease in blood pressure, and a 6% decrease in heart rate. It's not just about seeing trees, it's about immersing yourself in nature, and walking in forest can engage all of your senses, hearing the birds, hearing the wind rustle through the trees, seeing the movement of the branches. There are beneficial microbes in the soil that we can breathe in when we're out walking in nature that actually make us feel better. And then the smell of plant chemicals called phytoncides or essential oils. Those also make us feel better. So in 2021, an urban forester by the name of Cecil, I cannot pronounce his last name, but you are more than welcome to attempt it quietly in your head. Um, Cecil proposed the 330-300 rule. And what this is Cecil believes that every individual should be able to see at least 3 trees from their residence. They should have at least 30% tree canopy cover in their neighborhoods, and they should live 300 meters from the nearest park or green space. Now, where did Cecil come up with these numbers? So in Frederiksberg, Denmark, they have a policy that says that every citizen should be able to see at least 1 tree from their residence. Cecil said, let's take that a step further. I'll argue he went 2 steps further with 3 trees. In studies in Australia, they have repeatedly found that the 30% tree canopy cover is an important threshold. So they have done studies on that. And then the European Regional Office for the World Health Organization recommends a maximum distance of 300 meters. So some of these numbers may be a little arbitrary, some of them are rooted in science, but it is a step in the right direction in making sure that every citizen has access to trees, and not only trees, but green space in general, which is, as we've seen, very important to our health. Another reason we should love trees is personal connections. Nostalgia. Many people form personal connections with trees, whether through childhood experiences, family traditions, or simply spending time in their presence. So when I was a young child, my great aunt was the babysitter in our family, and my brother and cousins and I, we used to live in the weeping willow in my aunt's yard over the summertime. We climbed all over that tree. We made forts in that tree. We didn't come out of that tree until it was nighttime. Now, as an adult, I see a weeping willow tree and I think of my great aunt. As an arborist and a horticulturist, I know that you don't want to plant a weeping willow anywhere near you have drain pipes or water lines or anything like that because they have very aggressive root systems. But when I see a weeping willow, I want to go visit it. I want to go sit underneath of it. We also anthropomorphize trees. You can go to a store and you can buy a little kit and put faces on trees. They have eyes, a nose, and a mouth. We give them names. Names are a sign of affection and recognition of their personality. And it reinforces the perception of trees as an individual that has an identity and a purpose. And we're actually going to talk about some trees with names here in a little bit. Aristotle believed that plants have souls, but they cannot feel sensation. Charles Linnaeus, the father of taxonomy, believed that plants only differed from animals by their lack of movement. James Pritchard Tupper was a British botanist and a surgeon in the 1800s. I don't know how you get from botanist to surgeon, but he managed to do it. He was the first one to argue that plants were sentient, that they were aware of their surroundings. In the book, Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard, she actually talks about plants. Mother trees provide sugars and nutrients to the younger saplings nearby, kind of hinting that plants are capable of communicating and that they're capable of altruism in a way that we don't understand. If you have not read Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard and you are interested in anything that I've talked about today, I highly recommend this book. It's a very good book. Oh, sorry. Symbolism. Another reason why we love trees. Trees represent strength and growth and stability. Many cultures and many religions regard trees as sacred or symbolic. In literature, trees have served as powerful symbols across time. Shakespeare used trees to symbolize transformation and harmony. Keats celebrated their beauty and their spiritual significance. Lewis Carroll featured them in whimsical, surreal settings. And then in The Lord of the Rings, there are Ents, the ancient tree like beings that symbolize the power and the wisdom of nature. And we're going to go into symbolism a little bit more as well. Longevity. They have long lifespans, often spanning centuries or even millennia. They symbolize endurance and continuity. Ancient trees have witnessed centuries of history, and they often become living monuments, representing a tangible link to our past. They serve as historical landmarks, such as the Angel Oak and General Sherman. They hold historical and cultural stories that are passed down through generations, and they become a part of an identity of a place. So all of you here this morning came here to the Linda Hall Library, but in order to get inside, you had to go through the Arboretum. The Arboretum and the trees that are in our Arboretum are part of our identity as the Linda Hall Library and Arboretum. Environmental benefits. This is a big one. Large trees play vital roles in ecosystems. They provide food not only for us, but for countless creatures, habitats. They recycle, regulate water cycles. They prevent erosion. They sequester carbon. They contribute to soil health. Their ecological importance often translates into reverence for their role in sustaining life. Douglas Tallamy, an entomologist and a conservationist at the University of Delaware, he estimates that a native oak species here in the US hosts approximately 500 different caterpillars. Now, why do we care about caterpillars? Birds eat caterpillars. Chickadees, this teeny tiny little bird, it takes 6,000 caterpillars to raise one nest of chickadees, just one nest. That's a lot of caterpillars. So when you start thinking of all the birds, 90% of birds, land birds, rear their young on caterpillars. So trees are very, very important. Studies estimate in the US that trees remove 17.4 million tons of air pollution per year. That provides a $6.8 billion benefit and billion-dollar health benefit. It includes the prevention of 670,000 incidents of acute respiratory system symptoms and 850 incidences of human mortality. Here at the library, we have started using a new software, and as part of that software, we can actually figure out the ecological benefits of the trees that we have here on the property. The software is called iTree. And our largest tree on the property, which is a sycamore, it's right out here in kind of the southeast corner, stands at 98 feet tall. It has a diameter of the trunk at breast height of 49 inches. It stores 7,497 pounds of carbon and 27,490 pounds of carbon dioxide in its lifetime. That's just one tree on the property. Okay, so now let's talk about these trees. Let's talk about individual trees. Let's talk about the titans, the big guns, the MVPs, okay? And the first one of them that we're going to talk about are giants, trees that defy scale. Sentinels, trees of time and memory. And like I said earlier, we're going to go into symbols a little bit more. Trees of myth, faith, and art. And that's where we're going to start, right here with symbols, trees and myth, faith, and art. The first one that we're going to talk about is the tree of life. The tree of life has been around since 7000 BC. They have found evidence of the tree of life in Turkey in multiple excavations from that time period. The tree of life has appeared in countless cultures, religions, and mythologies all over the world and throughout history. Almost every single faith has its own version of the tree of life. including Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism. Meanings vary slightly for every religion and for every people, but almost all of them allude to the tree of life as being a symbol for eternal life. The tree of life even appears in ancient Egyptian mythology in the form of tomb carvings from which Iris and Osiris, the first couple in the world, emerged from. Next, we have Yggdrasil in mythology. This has been around since about 1201 to 1300 BC. This is known as the world tree. Yggdrasil is closely related to the tree of life, but Yggdrasil is a symbol of the universe, and it is said to connect the nine worlds, and it is tended by gods and mythical beings. So some of the most common gods, and I don't know if any of you have seen a Marvel movie in the last 10 years, but you have Thor, Loki, Odin. Any of those names sound familiar to anybody? Odin was actually the most important god. Um, he was the god of wisdom and knowledge, the god of war and the dead, and the god of magic and the occult. And Yggdrasil is commonly translated as Odin's horse. And it gets that translation because Odin once hung himself or rode the tree for 9 nights while he was wounded by his own spear in order to gain wisdom as a symbolic act of self-sacrifice. It is most commonly referred to as an ash tree. However, it is sometimes mentioned as being evergreen. So there are some discussions as to whether it is an ash tree or if it was possibly a yew, which was also popular during that time. And Norse paganism in general is closely tied to nature, and Yggdrasil is a metaphor for the interconnectedness in all things, including the gods. Sacred groves and trees were worshipped and used in rituals. Baobabs. Baobabs are sometimes called upside down trees. They are native to Madagascar, Africa, and Australia. And they are the most recognizable species is the endangered species in Madagascar. I'm actually going to read you a little story from an African proverb that says, long ago, in the time when the world was still new, African storytellers say that the first baobab tree grew beside a small, quiet lake. As it stretched skyward, the baobab noticed its neighbors, the other trees, adorned with vibrant blossoms, graceful trunks, and wide, elegant leaves. Curious and proud, it admired their beauty and waited for a breeze to settle so that it could see its own reflection in the still water. But when the wind finally stilled and the lake became glass-like, the baobab was dismayed. What it saw staring back was nothing like the trees it envied. Its flowers were dull, its leaves were tiny, its trunk bloated, and its bark looked like sagging, wrinkled skin. More beast than beauty. Outraged, the baobab cried out to the creator, declaring the design unfair. But the creator, unbothered by the complaints, reminded the tree that not everything is meant to be flawless. After all, was the hippo elegant? Was the cackle of the hyena pleasing? Still, the baobab refused to quiet. It went on complaining, obsessed with its reflection. At last, fed up with the tree's vanity and whining, the creator stormed back to earth, ripped the baobab from the soil, and flipped it upside down and thrust it back into the ground. Its mouth silenced beneath the earth, its roots exposed to the sky. From that moment on, the baobab stood in silence. Though it could no longer see its reflection or voice its discontent, it found new purpose. So, all across Africa, people tell this tale to explain why the baobab appears to grow with its roots in the air and why, despite its odd appearance, it is such a generous tree. It provides fruit and food in the form of fruit. The seeds are used to thicken soups, and it is also an alternative to coffee. One tree can store more than 1,426 gallons of water. They use the fibers to make rope and to make baskets used in traditional medicine. And it's also used for shelter in this hollow trunk. There have been things such as houses, pubs, and even prisons inside a baobab trunk. One tree can measure up to about 100 feet around. An old African proverb says, wisdom is like a baobab tree. No one individual can embrace it. All right, next we're going to look at literature. We already talked about Shakespeare and Keats and Tolkien, but now we're going to talk about The Living Tree by Shel Silverstein. This is a well-known children's story. It follows the lifelong relationship between a tree and a boy. As the boy grows older, the tree gives selflessly, offering its apples, its branches, its trunk, till eventually nothing is remaining except for a stump, which the boy, who's now an old man, sits down and uses to rest. Trees are often used in literature to represent ideas like giving, growth, time, and connection. In The Giving Tree, the tree becomes a central figure. It's quiet, it's generous, it's constant. I chose this story because, like many trees, it reminds us of the deep roles that trees play in our lives, both as symbols and as companions. Olive Trees by Vincent van Gogh. So while staying in an asylum, Van Gogh painted a series of olive trees inspired by the landscape around him. The twisted trunks and the swirling skies reflect his unique style and his emotional state. And olive trees have appeared throughout history as symbols of peace, endurance, and tradition. In Van Gogh's work, they become part of a larger story, showing how trees are more than just a background. They are subjects that carry meaning, mood, and message. Like in literature, trees and art help us see the natural world in new ways and connect us to something deeper. They help us understand not just what trees are, but what trees represent, our values, our struggles, our longing for meaning. Now, as we leave behind the symbolic, we're going to enter the realm of the enduring. We're going to turn to trees that do more than inspire, they remember. And we're going to do that with the sentinels. Trees of time and memory. The first tree we're going to talk about today, and if any of you are gardeners, you probably recognize this tree. This is the maidenhair tree, or often called just Ginkgo biloba. Biloba meaning two lobes. This tree is the oldest living fossil. Some records have this tree dating back to 290 million years ago, long before the dinosaurs roamed the earth. Ginkgos once lived in North America, Europe, and Japan, and throughout multiple mass extinctions before they dwindled to one species before the ice ages. Ginkgo biloba is the only species in the genus Ginkgo, which is the only genus in the family Ginkgoaceae, which is the only family in the order Ginkgoales, which is the only order in the subclass Ginkgoideae. These trees are currently endangered in their native habitat of China, and the oldest tree is estimated to be about 3,500 years old. Methuselah. Methuselah, at 4,850 years old, is the oldest non-clonal single trunk named tree. Now, I say oldest non-clonal single trunk named tree because we are going to talk about other trees that may not have names, other trees that may have multiple trunks, and other trees that may be clonal. So this tree is about 50 feet tall, and it stands at an elevation just shy of 10,000 feet. The U.S. Forest Service no longer discloses this tree's exact location. However, it is along the 4.5-mile Methuselah Trail in the ancient bristlecone pine forest, if anybody would like to visit. If you ask a forest worker where Methuselah is located, they will tell you to look carefully as you walk along the trail, and you will know that you have seen it by the time you return. So bristlecone pines are found at elevations between 5,600 feet and 11,200 feet in Eastern California, in Nevada, and in Utah. And the temperatures there range from 158 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer to negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter. And they have strong, strong winds year round with precipitation averaging just shy of 12 inches per year, and most of that is snowfall. It is so hot and dry in the summer and so cold in the winter that the trees can only actively grow for about 6 weeks, right as the spring snow is melting. The tallest trees only get about 60 feet tall. At the beginning, we said Methuselah is about 50 feet. In order to age these trees, I'm going under the assumption that everybody here knows when you cut down a tree and you count the tree rings that you can tell how old a tree is. So they do something in order to age living trees called dendrochronology, where they take and they drill a small core out of the side of the tree, and then they use that to count the tree rings to find out a tree's age. These trees grow so slowly that they have to use a microscope to count the rings. All right. And just to point out, this is not a picture of Methuselah since they won't tell us where Methuselah is located. This is just a bristlecone pine, as is this one, because this tree is unnamed and its location is not given away at all. It's not on a path that you can go and possibly see it. Um, this tree is 5,077 years old. This is another bristlecone pine, Pinus longeva. This seed germinated in 3050 BC, back in the time when humans were first beginning to develop a writing system in ancient Egypt. Now, there was a tree that was slightly older than this unnamed tree, and its name was Prometheus. This tree was cut down in 1964 by a grad student. Now, it is unclear what exactly happened, whether their borer got stuck, or if the borer was too short, or if they originally had permission from the Forest Service to cut the tree down from the beginning. But they did get permission to cut the tree down. And then when they came back and they aged the tree using dendrochronology, counting the tree rings, it was about 550 years old. So Prometheus today would have been older than unknown bristlecone pine. Now we have Old Tajiko. Old Tajiko is a Norway spruce, Picea abies. Old Tajiko is 9,550 years old. And Old Tajiko is our oldest clonal organism. So when I say clonal, what I'm meaning is this tree has sprouted new trunks from its roots over time. So we don't have just one trunk that we can actually take a core from. Um, this is actually a picture of Old Tajiko, and this trunk only stands about 16 feet tall. So these trees are conical in shape, which allows the tree to drop the excess snow loads. However, as snow falls and the weight builds up over millennia, it breaks those branches off, and then the tree forms new trunks. These trees are located at an altitude of 3,600 feet. Or this Old Tajiko is located at 3,600 feet in Sweden. Norway spruce trees can be found in a continuous swath from Norway to Western Russia, and they have been naturalized in North America, and they can make up 80% of coniferous forests. So because there isn't one single trunk that they could take the core from, they actually used carbon dating in order to figure out how old this tree is. And these trees are revered by the Sami people, and they are a symbol of life and renewal. Pando. Has anybody heard of Pando? Just show of hands. A couple of people. Okay. Handful of people have heard of Pando. Pando is the oldest clonal colony. And Pando is actually Latin for I spread. So Pando is about 13,000 years old. And a clonal colony is a group of genetic identical individuals that are grown in a given location. So what happens with Pando is you have the original tree, and then that tree has roots and the roots grow out. and then new trunks come up from those roots. And they continue to do that over time. And Pando has done that for about 13,000 years. It actually looks like there's about 45,000 individual trees. Each trunk only lives for about 150 years. So if you were to do dendrochronology on one trunk, you would only get about 150 years worth of grow rings. But Pando itself, there's some sources that say Pando is 12,000 years old. There are some that say 14. I went in the middle with 13. I thought that was the closest. So Pando is a quaking aspen, Populus tremuloides, and they are North America's most widely distributed tree from Alaska all the way down to central Mexico. Um, However, populations of quaking aspen have been declining since the 1990s. There has been no disease or pest that has been identified, but some possible causes are man-made fire suppression. So aspens are unable to grow in the shade, and without natural wildfires, conifers have been encroaching and shading them out. Another possible explanation is excessive cattle browsing, and then also climate change. So now we're going to shift from trees that endure to trees that astound, not through time, but through their sheer presence. The giants. Trees that defy scale. All right, this tree right here, General Sherman. Show of hands, who has visited General Sherman? Okay, that's what I thought. We have a lot more for General Sherman than for Pando. Yes. General Sherman, a giant sequoia, is the largest tree by volume. So at 54,000 square feet, stands at 217 feet tall and has a diameter of 27 feet. General Sherman is about 2,100 years old, and many giant sequoias live to be about 3,000 years. According to the tree book by the Smithsonian, this tree has enough wood for 175 miles or standard planks or for 35 five-room houses. That's a lot of wood. These trees are located in Sequoia National Park in California. And giant sequoias have actually evolved with wildfires. They have naturally thick, fireproof bark. And their cones, which hang on the tree for about 20 years, only release a few seeds at a time unless it goes through a wildfire and then the cones open up for fully. However, conservation efforts have suppressed our natural wildfires, and it's caused a thicker underbrush to grow around the trees, which causes the fires to burn much hotter and for much longer than they would have if we had more frequent flyers. Frequent fires, not flyers. I don't think General Sherman's going to fly anywhere. Um, and unfortunately, the largest and the tallest trees were felled for timber. So there's only a few trees left around in about 75 protected areas in the Sierra Nevadas. You can still visit General Sherman today. All right, Hyperion, show of hands. Anybody ever seen Hyperion? Couple of people. You are very, very lucky. So Hyperion, standing at the tallest living thing on Earth at 379 feet. That's taller than Big Ben at 316 feet and taller than the Statue of Liberty at 305 feet. So Hyperion wasn't even discovered until 2006. And in 2022, they actually stopped allowing visitors to visit Hyperion because there was too much damage to the environment. Today, if you tried to go out and visit Hyperion, it is a $5,000 fine. So coast redwoods, they're found in Northern California and southwestern Oregon. They survive because of cool current air that comes from the Pacific coast and from fog. They take up a lot of water, these some tall trees. They have the ability to take up 30% of their water from fog through their leaves and their bark. So not their roots, from their leaves and their bark. So, in Finding the Mother Tree, the book that I mentioned earlier in the slides, Suzanne talks about how trees have this relationship with fungi, and they use the fungi to access water and nutrients that may be beyond their root system. There is a group currently studying these redwoods in California, and they're finding that these trees have the same relationship, but the hyphae of the fungi actually extends from the stomata in the leaves in order to create a straw that captures the moisture in the fog and pull that into the leaf. And as you would assume, areas with the most fog have the tallest redwoods. 82% of redwoods are protected by the U.S. National Service. El Árbol del Tule. Anybody seen El Árbol del Tule? Couple people? Okay. This is a Montezuma cypress, and it has the largest trunk diameter of any tree at 138 feet circumference. Not diameter, circumference. This was last measured in 2005. It was once thought that this tree was so large that it had to be multiple trees. However, they did do DNA testing and they ruled that out. It is just one tree. It stands about 138 feet tall and it weighs about 630 tons. And it's estimated that this tree is 1,500 years old. It is located in Santa Maria del Tule, Oaxaca, Mexico. It's situated in the plaza of the Santa Maria del Asunción courtyard. The tree was once harmed by traffic and exhaust, and they eventually rerouted the road and put a fence around the tree in order to save this tree, and it did lead to recovery. Montezuma cypresses are native to Mexico and Guatemala, and it is often called the old man of the water. Next, we have angel oak. Angel oak is a live oak, Quercus virginiana, and this tree has the widest canopy of a non-clonal single trunk. So we're going to look at some clonal trees as well. So this is located on Johns Island in Charleston, South Carolina, and it is considered the largest live oak east of the Mississippi. This tree is about 300 to 400 years old. And live oaks actually get their name from appearing alive in the wintertime because they are evergreen and they shed their years throughout the year, unlike the rest of the oak species that actually go dormant and are not evergreen. They have really deep tap roots and they can take up to 50 gallons of water a day. Live oaks have the broadest spread of all of the oaks, and angel oak has one branch that extends 187 feet. Live oaks have very heavy, dense wood. It's actually the densest of all of the oaks. 1 cubic foot of air-dried wood weighs 55 pounds. The USS Constitution was nicknamed Old Ironsides during the War of 1812 because its hull was made of live oak wood and it was able to withstand the cannonballs from the British. In the South, this is a symbol of strength, and it is also the state tree of Georgia. The Mama Miramanu. The Mama Miramanu is a banyan tree, and this is the widest canopy of a clonal tree, which spreads 5.41 acres. So if you walk out the front door of the library today, the space that you'll see in front of you down to 51st Street is approximately 6 acres. So 5.41 acres for one tree. We have 130 trees in that space of 6 acres. So this tree was named after a woman named Thamama from a local myth where it says that she actually threw herself and committed suicide by throwing herself on her husband's funeral pyre. And the tree originated from one of the poles of the pyre. And then Mira, meaning banyan, and Manu, meaning trunk. So the Guinness Book of World Records in 1989 said that this was the world's largest tree. As we've seen today, there are many different ways to measure what constitutes the world's largest tree. It takes about 10 minutes to walk around the perimeter of this canopy. It is in Anantapur, India, and it is banyan trees are native to monsoon forests and rainforests from Malaysia to India, and they're often found at elevations of 1,500 feet to 4,000 feet. Banyans are India's national tree. They actually begin as an epiphyte, so similar to an orchid. And as it grows, it branches out and it sends down aerial prop roots. And these aerial prop roots over the years actually start to form bark. And so it looks like this tree has a lot of trunks. However, they're not trunks, they're roots, and the roots help stabilize the tree. And it is considered sacred by Hindus and Buddhists and symbolizes growth, longevity, and spiritual enlightenment. And then we have Pando again. Overachieving Pando. Pando comes in at a whopping 6,614 tons. Now, I don't know how accurate this information is. I couldn't find any information on how they came to this number. Somebody could have just made this up, but I thought it was fascinating. And it covers 106 acres as the largest canopy of a clonal colony. Pando was also thought to be multiple trees at one time. However, DNA testing in 2008 said otherwise. One tree. This is 3 times larger than General Sherman. Now, in difference to banyan trees that use these prop roots to come out as support, banyans use cloning as a way of spreading and versus sexual reproduction. So a lot of times seeds have very low viability, and so you don't get a lot of new genetic material within your quaking aspens. In fact, aspen trees are dioecious, meaning that they're separate male and female trees, and Pando is a male. So as we've seen today, trees are not just part of our environment, they are a part of our identity, our heritage, and our stories. Some have stood for thousands of years. They have witnessed entire civilizations rise and fall. They inspire awe across generations. And I hope that what you see today inspires you to look at trees as more than just a background story, because these titans are not invincible. Their survivability is often a matter of environmental luck and circumstance, climate change, genetics, fire, geology, geography, insects, storm, and just time. So today, many of the trees we revere, along with countless others, face unprecedented threats. Of the 3 trillion trees on Earth, the Botanic Gardens Conservation International estimates that 38% of the world's trees are at risk of extinction. 440 tree species have less than 50 individuals remaining, and 64% of tree species live in protected areas. Now, I'd like to leave you all with a quote that says, "Of all man's works of art, a cathedral is greatest. A vast and majestic tree is greater than that." Henry Ward Beecher.
All right. Thank you, Samantha. We have some time for some questions. We're live streaming right now, so if you do have a question, raise your hand so we can capture the audio for the virtual audience. Any questions?
Thank you. What range of animals have you seen on the grounds, and how is that changing?
Here on the property, we have seen foxes, coyotes, possums. I have never actually seen a deer on the property, but I have seen deer fur caught in our fence, so I know they've been here. raccoons. I mean, we have a million squirrels if anybody wants to take one home. Um, red-tailed hawks, we have barred owls. Um, just a crazy assortment that I never expected here in this urban location. And I would say over the past 10 years, it has kind of been about the same. The fox was about probably 7 or 8 years ago. I haven't seen him in the last 5 or 6 years, but I just see the coyote last year. So it's been pretty stable for 10 years.
Back here on your left.
Hi, thank you. Here on the grounds, what are your biggest challenges with the tree canopy and what are your biggest successes that you've had that you could share with us that we could maybe try to do something too?
I would say our biggest challenges have probably been um, storm damage or just mechanical damage in general. Anytime you have a break or even any kind of cut in the tree bark, that allows an opportunity for fungus and bacteria to get into the tree. So some of our older tree species, some of our oaks, which, oaks should live for hundreds of years, we're seeing some decay in those because of mechanical damage or from storm damage that we have sustained. Um, as far as our biggest success, I am going to give credit to my predecessors because they had the foresight to plant some really unique species. We currently have about 15 champion trees on the property. Now, if you don't know what a champion tree is, it is the largest of its species in the Kansas City area. So we have 15 trees that are the largest of their species here in Kansas City on the property. And, my predecessors did an amazing job of planting those different species and making sure that we had that unique variability in our species.
Staying on your left here.
I believe we all know that trees capture CO2.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Where does it end up, the CO2?
So it actually goes through the process through the tree and it comes out as oxygen in really just simple terms.
Any other questions? All right.
You mentioned the importance of green spaces and trees in urban areas, especially.
Mhm.
Have you been part of or are aware of any efforts in Kansas City that people could get involved with to bring green spaces, trees to urban areas in Kansas City?
There is actually a program through the city of Kansas City where they offer free trees. I believe it's twice a year in the spring and then in the fall, and most of those are actually native trees that they're offering. So the city of Kansas City itself, is pioneering some of these movements and saying, hey, we need more trees in Kansas City, Missouri, and we will give them to people. You just have to plant them. Yes, that's through Heartland Tree Alliance. Yep.
Could you please repeat the name of the book that you suggested everyone read?
Finding the Mother Tree.
Did you not say that one of the Pandal groups is the world's largest living organism?
Yes. Yeah. Pando was in two different sections of my slides here. Pando is huge. And I actually heard stories that if you see an aerial view of Pando in the fall, when you go out there, you can actually see the borders of Pando because since Pando is genetically identical, all of the leaves turn at the same time. So you can see the edges of Pando versus the other poplars in the area. Yeah. Utah. It's in Utah.
I've been hearing a lot about people and organizations kind of engaging in a movement where they're moving to native plants only and kind of shunning non-native plants. What percentage of the trees here on the property would you say are native to the Kansas City area?
I would say 20% of our species are native trees. We probably have a larger, maybe close to 40% of the number of trees are native. And that is a very big movement, and a lot of people are following that movement. And if you don't know about native plants are wonderful. Native plants are very, very important ecologically. And I'm a big proponent of planting native trees.
I'm done.
Do you have advice for people that are looking to plant more trees around their homes to make sure that those trees are set up for success, that they have enough space to grow and that they're going to, like, the tree's going to be safe and healthy and not be like at risk of like crowding other plants out or being crowded out or being crowded out by like man-made structures around?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing we say in landscaping is right plant, right place. Make sure that you plant the tree that you pick out has enough space to grow, that it's not going to be in competition with trees right next to it. Make sure that you're planting it far away enough from your house. And don't just think about your house as in the physical and what you can see. Also think about your foundation, because your foundation is going to restrict the roots, or the roots could possibly damage your foundation as well. So definitely make sure to take all of those things into consideration whenever you're picking out a tree. And I mentioned oaks in my slide and the number of just caterpillar species that these trees host. If I could recommend any tree for anyone to plant, I would recommend an oak because of their ecological importance. They are slow growing, they just have amazing longevity, amazing trees.
Okay, back on your left again.
One of my favorite books is called The Hidden Life of Trees by a forester.
Yes, Peter Wallenberg.
Yes, one of the things he talks about is community, how a grove of trees creates community on the grounds. Have you seen any of that happening?
I haven't seen any direct evidence of community. A lot of this stuff actually happens underground, with the root systems that we can see. However, one thing in a community of trees that some people don't think about is when you plant a single tree by itself and you make sure and it has there's no other trees around it, that tree is kind of exposed and off by itself. Whereas if you have multiple trees in a location that are spaced far enough apart that they can actually expand and grow successfully, those trees will actually kind of protect each other and they will create this community that protects them from storms.
Okay, over on your right.
Who makes the determination that you might have a champion tree? And if they do, is that based on height or girth or volume, or how do they come to that conclusion?
That's a good question. Right now, Bridging the Gap is the group that oversees the champion tree registry. So if you believe you've seen a champion tree, you can nominate it through Bridging the Gap. And what they do is they use a formula where they take the height of the tree in feet plus the width of the canopy in inches plus the diameter at 4.5 feet tall of the trunk in inches, and they add all of those together, and that will give you a score. And the tree with the highest score is the champion.
Any other questions? All right, coming up to the front.
A lot of questions have come up about more information on trees, and I'm just going to make a plug for the Arbor Day Society. As a member, they will send you 10 free trees or plant 10 trees for you as well. And it gives you a lot of information about trees and how to plant them, as well as you can order plants from them as well.
Yes, absolutely. Arbor Day, huge. We have Arbor Day here in Missouri. I'm actually from Nebraska, the home of Arbor Day. Yeah.
All right, we got a question over here.
Are there ever tours to identify the trees given here on the property?
We don't do identification tours, but we are planning just an Arboretum tour this fall as another second Saturday program, if you want to kind of keep an eye out for that.
All right, and that tour will be in November?
I believe it's November, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, we are coming up at the top of the hour. Any last questions? Okay, we'll do a virtual question. Heather asked, are there any threatened native Missouri tree species we can grow?
Yes. I can't think of one specific one off the top of my head, but just any native tree species. And like I said, right plant, right place. Don't plant an oak in a 4x4 space that you have between your sidewalk and your front steps.
That's solid advice.
Yeah.
Last call, any questions? Okay, right here.
Just a comment, the National Arbor Day Foundation has a new program to adopt schools within a community.
Mhm.
And they reached out to Warrenville Homestead and the Heartland Tree Alliance, and we've adopted Border Star School. So you can watch this fall, there'll be a major re-landscaping of the grounds and the streetscape on all sides of Border Star School.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
thank you, Arbor
Yeah.
Day Foundation.
All right, fantastic. Any last questions? Okay, thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us this morning, and for all of our upcoming programs and events, visit lindahall.org. Thank you.